Episode 23 of the Interpretation Station is Call to Order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the dubiously titled new format on the Interpretation Station that I call Wham Bam Thank You Roland, where I just give you a quick commentary outlining my rationale for these pages that I'm putting up on the LinkedIn website. I'm plucking these pages from random statements and then just annotating them, giving just certain tips, ideas, what I would skip if I was under pressure, if it was really bad sound quality, and then just giving a few interesting solutions here and there. And so in Wham Bam Thank You Roland, all I do is just go into a little bit more depth as to why I've done what, going into my rationale, as we say. So the one we're doing today is, if you recall, I think this was from Sunday, I took a page from the statement to the general debate back in 2018 by Mr. Emmanuel Macron, President of France, the Big Mac. Okay, so sharing my screen now. You can hopefully see it. Hopefully this format will work. Okay, so the first thing I've highlighted then is le seuil de pauvreté. It's always a good little set phrase to know. So I've given you two options there. Poverty threshold, poverty line. I guess in English we maybe say poverty line a little bit more naturally, but I think either or will do. I guess line's got one syllable, threshold too. So. Okay, then celles et à ceux. Okay, when you're under pressure, I think it's perfectly legitimate just to say those. Okay, now I know the intention is to say, French women and men. But he's reading the statement. He's got all the time to use all the flowers that he wants. If we're in trouble and we're in a hurry, I think you can just say those. The only exception to that might be if it's specifically a statement about let's say women's empowerment, women's contribution, where he specifically wants to differentiate between the contribution of women and men. But I think in these circumstances, you're okay just to say those. Then we have soins alimentaires, okay, basic care, basic health care, sort of speaks for itself. This second paragraph, why I've put brackets around aujourd'hui here, because I think in the context, again, you can just skip it. It doesn't add anything to it. He's talking about what we're doing now. We're trying to respond, meet the aspirations of the youth, etc. And again, today it really adds nothing to the overall meaning. So I think you could skip it if you wanted. Okay, then down this paragraph here, turn leur regard vers. Okay, this is a classic opportunity where in English you can just put these four words just into two. Just say they look to us. You don't need to have the same flowery idea as in the original. Look to, it gets to the point. Then, okay, se tromper, they are wrong, or they are mistaken, either or. Okay, then here, okay, so les crises de demain, d'après-demain. Okay, now I guess in English we can say, yes, the crises of tomorrow. However, I think if you say the crises of tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, it just sounds clumsy in English. It doesn't sound right. And it's also a bit of a saying of the day after tomorrow. It's a bit of a mouthful. So I think it's just better if you just say the crises of tomorrow and beyond. Okay, that's why I've done that there. And then, okay, next paragraph. So I wrote here, so nous avons progressé pour réduire. We have reduced, and I say don't underestimate the power of the emphasized word in English. So I think in English, more than in other languages, we have this option really to put stress on a given word to really give it that added emphasis. And I think this is a classic example. Okay, so you could say we have made progress in reducing. Okay, but again, it's a mouthful. It takes a long time to say. Whereas I think if you just say we have reduced, that basically sends the same message. It speaks for itself, that idea that we've done all these things just by putting that emphasis on the have. We have reduced inequalities. Okay, loin d'être. Oh, sorry. Okay, the second line, le cadre avec l'origine 2030 pour le développement. Why have I crossed out pour le développement? Well, in theory, they should all know what Agenda 2030 is all about. All these delegates sitting there, and anyone who's really watching this, everyone knows what Agenda 2030 is all about. You could say it if you've got the time, but I think you could also drop it. Loin d'être achevé, okay, far from over, far from finished, whatever you like. La richesse par habitant, wealth per inhabitant, wealth per capita, you could say, is perhaps technically the very best way of doing it. Okay, pays à faible revenu. This is an important, maybe set phrase just to know. Low-income countries. Something similar, which they use a lot, more than low-income countries, is pays à moyen revenu. Middle-income countries, and they are sometimes referred to as the mix, the MICs. Less so, for whatever reason, you don't tend to hear as much about the low-income countries, but just be familiar with that construction: low-income countries, middle-income countries. Okay, okay. Why this long line here? Okay, if you say in English, do we think that? So the best word for durablement, okay, in this context is lasting. Okay, this doesn't sound right. Do we think that lastingly we can build stability? So, in English, we're more likely to put the adverb after the verb. All right. So, do you think that we can build lasting stability? You turn the adverb into an adjective. Okay. And with stability, that's the best solution for durable. That's the sort of collocation, lasting stability. So that's why I put that there. C'est pour cette raison. Okay, you just say that's why. That's fair. That's straightforward enough. L'aide publique au développement. You should be definitely familiar with that expression. In English, that is official development assistance, which can be shortened to ODA or even ODA, I've heard used. So that's a set phrase you need to know. Sometimes they say in French APD, I think, but not that often. Okay, no, crédit humanitaire. I just put loans here because I think loans is a better word solution than the calc. Okay, credits. Credits are used sometimes in other contexts. And it can maybe lead to a bit of confusion, whereas with loans, it's really all about money. So it's just good to know when you hear crédit, generally it's going to be about loans. Okay, and then compta, you don't need to add. This is just a bit of a flower. This is, again, a bit of a flower. So our humanitarian loans will increase by 40%. Okay, moving on to this next paragraph on the G7. So why have I put du sommet here in brackets? Well, when they talk about the G7, it sort of goes without saying that it's going to be about a summit. And and again, if you're running out of time, it sounds perfectly natural to say, the French presidency of the G7 in 2019. Summit doesn't really add much to the overall meaning of it. Okay, revoir le format en profondeur. There we go. We've got 5 French words that can all be sumptuously pared down to one word in English. Revamp. Now you're going to say that's tough for a word like revamp to come to you in the heat of action. Okay, but I say I'm giving you that word revamp because it's just generally a good word to have, and if you keep hearing it, at some point you might be able to apply it. Now, I must say, if I was to hear this, I don't know if revamp would come to my head. I'd probably hear revoir le format, and I would probably say, so revisit. I like revisit as a word for like reviewing stuff, going back over stuff. So the format, or we wish to revisit the format in depth. That's probably what I would say if it was in the heat of action here, and I was just hearing it. But so yeah, revamp is just to give you that other potential string to your bow. And then moving down, okay, je m'engage à venir. Again, just to give you a new word here, often with je m'engage, you're going to hear I commit to, for example. So you don't tend to hear pledge. I mean, it's the same idea. I pledge to come and rendre compte, to report. So yeah, pledge, just to give you another sort of synonym. Okay, and then les équilibres du monde est depuis longtemps passé. So just come up with some sort of solution there. Long gone, a thing of the past as well, but long gone is quicker to say. Okay, now why have I put this in brackets? So les pays qui le composent. So I've said the member countries here, and now you might be asked. So I put a note here actually. Why have I not said member states? So member states, I think you could perhaps. You might, as I said, you might get confused between UN member states and the members of the G7. So it's purely to sort of draw a distinction between the two, okay? The G7 member countries as opposed to member states, which automatically make you think of UN member states. That's why I've done that. I think if you said member states, it would be fine, but it's just to provide a bit more greater clarity to the listener. Okay, then this paragraph, attaquer aux inégalités, so just to give you a sort of synonym, good one, tackle. Another one that came to mind was to root out. I think they often talk about rooting out inequalities, so you might like to think about that. The only thing is that are at the racine de ce mal, the root or of that scourge. So I think we talk about the inequality perhaps being at the heart of a scourge. So I think one or other would do. Que je dénonçais. I mean, this is a very sort of French, again, it's very high register, obviously the president of France speaking. At the heart of the scourge that I bemoaned at the start of my statement. Now, I don't know if naturally in English, if it was a British prime minister saying that something similar, he probably wouldn't say this scourge that I was bemoaning at the start of the statement. He would probably just say the scourge that I referred to at the start of my statement. So I've given you bemoan there because I think it's a good word. It makes a nice alternative from the standard sort of that I regretted or that I deplored. Sounds a bit weird in English. So I like bemoan. Okay, les aberrations morales. I've just said failings there for I don't think we'd say. I mean, there is a word, isn't there, in English, aberrations, but we don't hear it that often. I think maybe failings is more clear. The unsustainable, unsustainable reality, the intolerable reality. It's up to you. And again, here I've just gone again with soins alimentaires, basic healthcare. That's essentially what he's referring to. Final paragraph then, tenu l'engagement pris. Now you could do the fancy way and say, we have delivered on the commitment undertaken here last year. But that's such a mouthful to say, isn't it? It sounds very grand. Sounds very good English. We've honoured our commitment assumed last year. So I thought I would just go and I would try and find the absolute shortest possible solution in English. And I think that's it. We've kept our word given here last year. Sometimes it's just best, rather than to go with the flowers, just keep it simple. Gets the exact same meaning across, Okay, and what I've done here at the end here, so this is quite a long sentence, this one. So to make life easier, I've put in a full stop. I'm going to turn this sentence into two sentences. That's what the meaning of this is. And then the new sentence starts the conference on financing a global partnership, blah, blah, blah. And then finally here, this sentence, it's always good to have a ready-made solution for when they talk about, with figures and something is increased by a certain amount, how much it's multiplied and what have you. So, multiplié par 10 fois sa contribution, increased by tenfold. That's what I that's my sort of go-to solution when I hear, increases in magnitude, twofold, threefold, etc. And that's pretty much it. Wham bam. Thank you, Roland. I hope you found that useful, and I'm sure there'll be more coming up. Remember, follow me on my LinkedIn page. I've just started the new LinkedIn group. So I'm going to be on the LinkedIn group under the Interpretation Station. So in the Interpretation Station group, I am going to be storing, I'm going to keep it as a sort of archive of all these statements. I'll have the pages. I'll have link every time I do a wham bam. Thank you, Roland. Commentary. I'm going to link it to the page. So that's where you're going to find all the good stuff. Also, I just want you to think about one thing. I'm completely open to cooperation with any of you guys. If any of you guys are feeling brave in any language combination, any, Hindi into Cantonese, Wolof into Vietnamese, and you want to appear on the interpretation station, you want to have some of your work appear on it, and you feel brave enough to do something like this, just starting with a one-page one annotated page like I do, just giving a little introduction, how you're approaching the text. If you're feeling brave, guys, you know where to find me, okay? All right, so I hope that was good. Smash the thumbs up button if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I'll see you next time, probably, with another Wham Bam Thank You, Roland, next week. Okay, so with that, episode 23 of the Interpretation Station is adjourned. Bye.
The train is now leaving the interpretation station.